Hello and welcome to my channel. We are in beautiful Banff, Canada National Park here in Alberta. You can see the gorgeous mountains, the beautiful blue skies. Nothing is better. So we brought our trailer in, and since we were off grid, we needed to fire up the solar panels and the EPEVER tracer MPPT solar charge controller. So please join me in showing you how to set it up and even how to hook it up to your computer, which is fairly complex as I found out during this trip. If you're new to the channel, please hit like and subscribe so that I know what kind of content to provide to you, the viewer, for future episodes. So here's a controller, and you can see a bunch of wires hooked up to it. Now always follow the instructions. Essentially what you do is you hook up the battery, so the plus and minus of the battery, those middle terminals, and then you hook up the solar panels on the left, and you can see that there's a temperature sensor, so that does some temperature correction, and that just hangs. I have that sensor hanging just in the air freely. And then finally is the COM port on the right, and this is where you can actually hook it up to your computer. You can upload the data, you can actually send new data to the charge controller, which I haven't done, and you can see the trends of how the amps and the voltage change based on the how much solar power you're generating. What is important to note is the label on the COM cable, because that is needed for the driver installation later. Mine's a 485. So to start with, I'm going to assume that you've already set up your settings in your charge controller as per what type of battery you have, and it's reading values. As you can see, it's scrolling across the top in terms of how much energy is being generated, how much is being used by the load, and that sort of thing. Alright, let's get started on the fun stuff now and trying to get this controller hooked up to your PC. So basically you go into epever.com homepage, click on support on the top, and then this leftmost icon is software, and you scroll down to the charge controller version 1.95, in this case Windows 7/10, even though I have Windows 11 machine. It shows you all of the compatible products down here, and this is where you do your download. Once you finish downloading the charge controller software and unzipping it, you'll see the folder created on your machine, and there's three particular folders: the installation guidance, which is of limited usefulness. I think it's even old. The PC software, which you need for monitoring, uploading, and downloading parameters from the charge controller, and then the USB driver, which is very important because the built-in Microsoft driver will not work, so you need to have this installed. So I've already done the installation of the driver, but I'll walk you through how I did it. I honestly don't know what these two are. I just went to the second one because it has a Windows 10 USB driver. Even though I'm running Windows 11, this seemed to work. The other thing you have to do, I guess you don't really need to know it, but see what your system settings are. But ultimately what you do is you click on the installer, and the installer will go through and it will automatically install the driver that your computer needs. Alright, so the next thing you can do is go to the device manager. Just type device manager into the search field. It'll pull up this application, and if you go down to ports, you'll see right now these are the current ports that are in use on my PC, comms 3 to 6, and let me just swing back and go to the drivers again. Okay, so now what I've done is I've plugged in my charge controller into my PC using that RJ45 connection to my USB port on my computer. It's very important to note what the cable says on it. Mine says, the one I purchased says RS485, so just keep that in mind, because you'll see now we have an additional COM port installed. So now if I can go to the properties, really the important thing is, well, first of all, here it says the device is properly working. I go to the port settings, and I don't know if I selected this by default, but this is one that I'm using, and it's very particular. And you might have to use trial and error to get it to work, but this is 115/200, 8 bits, no parity, 1 stop bit, and no flow control. This one is very important here, the RS-485. As I mentioned, that's what my cable says on it, so this is what I have selected. If you're not using that protocol, you may have to uncheck this box. Everything else remains unchecked. And then when I go to the advanced settings, you can see the COM port number is COM port 7, which is where it automatically by default put it. So we're finished configuring that particular port now. Finished installing the driver, we will click on the PC software tab, and it's as simple as just double clicking on this EPEVER setup, and it'll run through the installation package for you. Okay, now is where the fun starts. I deleted the configuration that I had so I can do this from scratch. So essentially the first thing you do is you go up to the top, select port config, and you remember I had COM 7, I had this particular baud rate 8, 1, and none. So now that I am convinced that that's what it is, you can always click on device manager if you don't remember what COM port it is, and it'll show you here. So now I just go add, and you can see it added it here. Just close out of that, and now you can see it's added COM 7. So now what do I need to do? I need to go here, go up here with the plus sign, and now I'm going to add the station name. This is all basically, it's just for cosmetics. Doesn't really change anything, but if you wanted to, you can put all the information in here. Shows the date. There's a bunch of specs here, and I don't think it matters as long as these ones are filled in by default. It might matter if you're actually going to upload values to the controller. So once everything is done, you hit add. It says add station successful. And this is kind of where you try to figure out if it's actually communicating or not. So the easiest thing to do is go to parameters, device parameters, and click on the real-time clock. And this will show you the station that you just created. And if you click read, and it actually reads the time, you're in business. So this is the time that shows up in the controller. If this is the first time you've done it, it will be the wrong time. You will basically, in that case, you would just hit update, and it'll just take whatever the local time is on your machine and send that over to the controller. Believe me, this took a lot of time to figure this out, changing settings, changing COM ports, and that sort of thing. But once you do it, this is what it's supposed to look like, and you can see there's a status window here which says that it was successful in reading the date and time. So now that we know it's communicating, we can click on start monitoring, and voila, you can see all of the good information that you've got associated with that controller. And eventually it will start populating this. Right now it's close to evening, so I don't think I have much. You can see there's very little amperage being generated from the panel. The nice thing is you can see the battery state of charge. My batteries, I was unsure about their state because they've been sitting in the garage all winter. So this morning the state of charge was 40%, so it's actually gone up, which is great. That means I'm generating more power than I'm using. You can also see the temperatures, and there you go. You can see the voltage, the current, power. So you can also do things like if you had multiple multiple controllers. You can see them in a list here. As I said, you can actually load configuration into this, which I will not do, but there's a lot of cool information and data transfer that can happen. You can see I can actually read all of the device information here. Well, thanks for watching this video, and if you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel and look forward to future content.